Hello, my name is Robert Loy. I'm the Director of Non-Degree Programs at Grand Canyon University, and I want to thank you for starting the process of applying and hopefully admission into the non-degree program for the Java coders here at Grand Canyon University. As part of your application process, you will have to go through a couple of the checks and balances, a logic challenge, an interview, and another one is the coding challenge. This video is specifically aligned to help you complete and set up your GitHub account and create your first HTML page and link it to the pieces necessary to get a passing grade on your coding challenge. So for those that have never used a system like a GitHub or Bitbucket, I'm going to walk through the instructions on the GitHub platform. The GitHub platform is a repository where people from around the world can store code and see other people's code, collaborate, try to pick up some information maybe that they missed on something else, or learn something new, or put their projects they're working on, contribute to an open source project. There's all kinds of stuff that happen. But one thing it can do is also allow us to create a web page and send it to people like Grand Canyon so that we can see the work you've done from an HTML perspective. So if you go to github.com, you can go ahead and create an account. And if you already have an account, you can just log into it. So I've already had a GitHub account. I've spent GitHub for quite a while. So I'm going to go ahead and just log in with my credentials. Once you create your account and log in for the first time, it will probably look pretty different than what you see on my screen right now. You might not have any repositories, you might have any news, you might not have any other information that pops up, but you should see the opportunity to create a new repository. That can either be done on the left-hand side, or if you go up to the plus in the right-hand side, you can pick new repository. So let's go ahead and create a repository where we can host our HTML pages. You'll see your name or your GitHub account as part of the owner, and this is where it becomes very important to follow the naming convention. And anything you do in code, case sensitivity, name sensitivity, syntax sensitivity is all very important to make your code work and to keep the fewest frustrations that you can have at bay. So following the instructions the best you can will make it very easy. Go ahead and use your username. So mine is Robert Loy. We're going to add in github.com. So the naming convention is going to be your user account .github. I'm sorry, it's not .com, it's .io. So that's the naming convention we want. We're going to pick public, which is by default. We're going to initialize this with a README file, which will, as part of the class, will explain the difference between the README file and the files that come along with it. Nothing else needs to change. So your user account name .github.io, public, initialize, and then at the very bottom you can go ahead and click Create Repository. Here is an empty project or empty repository. Right now I have my name, my robertloy.github.io. I've got one file in here right now, and we're going to create our first HTML page. So on this page, we can upload files, but we're going to work within the GitHub environment because I'm not sure what tools and applications that everyone has available to them. So we'll try to keep this as vanilla as possible. Go ahead and click Create a New File. The name for our web page is going to be index.html. Everything is lowercase, there's no spaces, so index.html. And down here, we create our HTML file. HTML is not like Java. So this program that you're going to applying for is a Java program. What we're doing right now is front-end work. We do a little bit of front-end work towards the end of the 16 weeks, but for the most part, we'll be doing stuff on the back-end side. The code we're doing here is just to show that you can follow instructions, research a little bit of stuff online, and the syntax can be important, and syntax when it comes to Java is very important. So I'm going ahead and creating a framework for my HTML page. If you notice, I've got an opening HTML tag, and at the very bottom down here, I have a closing one. Let me go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. So for those that are watching, make it even a little bigger here. So HTML, closing HTML. All my closing tags have these backslashes in front of it. Inside my body, this is what shows up in the browser for people. So I'm going to go ahead and do an H1 tag. And I want to put in Rob's resume. And I'm going to close that H1 tag. Notice pretty much every tag that I have, my HTML, my head, my body, all have an opening tag and a closing one. An opening tag, a closing one, opening, closing, opening, and closing. And all those closing ones have in that backslash. I'm going to add one more piece of content here, and that's going to be a paragraph tag. And I'm going to go, this is my first web page, and put an exclamation point there, close my paragraph tag because we're following the naming convention with everything, got a closing one. So I've got my index.html as my file name. I've got my structure for my HTML page. And at the very bottom here, I can commit this file. So I'm going to go ahead and just click the green button here and commit new file. It'll take a second for it to go through. There we go, and you can see now I have two files in my repository. So there's my repository name. I've got my README file that I created earlier, and there's that index.html page. In another browser window, I can go ahead and type in robertloy.github.io. So that URL that I created, or that repository I created, just goes right beyond the HTTPS. And if I hit that, I should get Rob's resume, this is my first web page. So there I published my very first thing onto the internet. Anyone that has this particular URL can see it, whether you're at your house or a family member's house, or even in China or Africa or South America, wherever you are that has internet access, this site is now available. Now that's not all you need to do for your coding challenge. There's a couple other components, so we're going to add a couple more pieces to this. One of them is we're going to create a style sheet. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm on my repository page, I can see my index.html page. I'm going to go ahead and click Create New File. Inside this one, we're going to make a very specific type of file, and we're going to call it style, S-T-Y-L-E, .css, cascading style sheet. That's what the CSS stands for. This code looks a lot different than what we just did on our HTML page. On our HTML, we made code that looks like that. For this one, we are going to put what's called style content in here. So we are going to tell it we want the body to have a little bit different style. So I'm going to tell it we want to make the background color blue. Actually, since we're for Grand Canyon, we'll go ahead and make it purple. So the code, there are some links that you can go visit that will help you use style sheets, but you'll see code that is very similar to this. That I've got my tag here, I've got my braces, I've got the style that I'm trying to change, and the value that goes along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here. I'm going to commit this new file so that it gets saved. You'll notice now I have 3 files in my repository. So I'm still working on my robertloy.github.io repository. There's the README file, there's the index file, and there's the CSS file. If I refresh my page that I created earlier in my browser, just go ahead and use the refresh, nothing changed. I don't have any purple content on my page right now. I just have my normal stuff because I have to link my style sheet I created to my HTML page. So I'm going to go ahead, click my index.html page, and I'm going to find the pencil here. I'm going to edit this file. Inside the head, so the content from the previous content was put in the body. This is what you see in the browser. Stuff that goes in the head helps you set up your environment. So in here, I'm going to add a link. I'm going to link to that style.css file that I created just a few minutes ago. And I'm going to tell the browser that this is a style sheet file. So I'm going to link to that file I created, the style.css, and it's a style sheet that comes into it. Go ahead and make that change up here, link with your open and closing. Notice this one has a backslash at the end of it. It's a self-closing file, so it's a little bit different syntax. There's not a separate tag for a closed link. We just go ahead and close that link with the backslash right before the greater than sign. So I'm going to go down here now. I'm going to commit that change. Give it a second to go through. There's the updated file that I have. I'm going to go over to my browser that I have my web page already on here. There's my Rob's resume. This is my first page. And I'm going to refresh this one. And I'm going to refresh this one. So I'm just going to do an inspect source here and see if that shows up. Nope. See, notice my page does not have the link in here. If you right click a web page, you can see the HTML that underline it that makes it look the way it did. So I added in that link tag in my head, but because it takes a little while across the internet for certain changes to take effect, it's not quite here. So we've given it a little bit more time, and we should get this to pop up here. Oops. There it is. Now I have my purple page. So just had to wait probably about a minute for that to refresh. A little hard to read with my content there, but there's Rob's resume. Let's go ahead and make another change to this. I want to add an image to my page. Well, for me to add an image, I have to have access to that image up on my site. So I'm going to go back to my repository. I'm going to go click my link up here at the top. Right now I'm on my index file, but I want to get to the top level here. Now I'm back at the top level. There's my two files. I'm going to upload a file this time. I want to upload a picture file. I'm going to click upload. I could drag it over here if I knew exactly where it was, but on this page, instead I'm going to choose the file I want to upload. And I'm going to find, I believe it's on, there it is, Rob Loy JPEG. Find it on my computer, choose that one. There's my Rob Loy, but that's not enough. You do not forget to commit your changes. You want to finalize that file and make sure you have access to it. So I'm going to go ahead and commit that change. Now you see that I have my Rob Loy JPEG file here. So we're going to go back to our index file. There's my code. There's my link that I added earlier. There's my code inside there. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click the pencil to edit it. And above my name, so I'm going back to my body. Remember we talked about everything that the user sees is going to be inside your body. The head is where you set up this stuff. So like the background color being set for blue gets done up here. But what the user sees is going to go here. And we're going to add in an image tag. And we're going to tell it the source. And the source is Rob Loy JPEG or whatever file you uploaded. So whatever file your name was, don't put my name in there unless that's the file you happen to upload. Go ahead and type in img space src with the name of that particular file. This is another one of those self-closing one where the backslash goes inside the greater than sign in that particular case. I'm going to go ahead and save this or commit this change at the bottom. There's my change. My link is still there. My image now shows up, my H1 and my paragraph tag. Everything looks good. I'm going to go back to my browser here and I'm going to refresh it. Let's see how fast this one takes effect. No, not quite there yet. Again, if you right click and go to page source or view source, you'll see this is the code that you wrote. Now, the linked file is now there because the purple background shows up, so we know we have access to that. But my image tag, which is above my H1 and the code I wrote, is still not here. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here and refresh this particular page. Still not there. Again, it could take up to a minute for it to show up there. So while we're doing this, this is the last thing I'm going to show you. You can do a lot more with your layout. You can do tables and bold text and bullet lists and numbered lists. You can add all kinds of graphics. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with your style sheet. For you to get a high score in your coding challenge, spending time in your style sheet will be very important. Changing the colors and the fonts and the background and manipulating your images will be very important. But for what I want to do is at least walk you through the process of creating the GitHub account, putting your files up there, and linking them all together. So now that I distracted you for a few minutes, let's go ahead and see if my picture shows up. There's my picture, shows up right across there. There's me from a couple of Novembers ago with a couple different beard styles over the course of a couple of weeks. So I've got a graphic that goes off to the side. I've got my text on there, but that's a solid point where we can kind of stop at this thing, and I will leave it up to you to kind of wow us with what skills you can bring to an HTML page. And just be aware that your HTML code, the stuff you see when you look at this file, is not what Java looks like, but understanding syntax structure and stuff will be helpful. So hopefully this was a good lesson for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing your resume soon in my inbox and getting a chance to talk to you in person about how you and Grand Canyon can work together to turn you into Java programmers. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.